Okie dokie, folks, and welcome back to Monday Night Shaw right here on Love Wrestling. Today on the show, I have BC wrestling promoter Marty Sugar. He's also a professional wrestler, and he was a big part of Totally Arctic Wrestling, which is a series I'm kind of doing right now. I've already interviewed Noller Bear, and I interviewed Dez the Eskimofo, and both of those guys said that a lot of what happened up in the Arctic there was helped along by Marty Sugar. So, Marty, how did you get involved with the fellas from Totally Arctic Wrestling?
In all honesty, it was just a fluke. You know, one big thing with wrestling is just a kind of location and luck and all that good stuff. And my sister lived in Inuvik at the time and knew Dez. They were on city council together. No one in Inuvik has one job. If when you go up there, it's like, I'm a fireman and I work on city council and I do 6 other things. It's a small community, so everyone kind of pitches in. They knew each other on the city council, like I said, and Des wanted to be a pro, and my sister has been annoyed with my wrestling habits since I was a kid. So she was like, hey, you know who you should talk to is my brother. And him and I hit it off like gangbusters from the second we started chatting, and we just realized we were kindred spirits. And when the opportunity came to go train those guys, I jumped at the chance.
Yeah, no, he seemed like a really nice guy to me too. Like when I got a chance to talk to him, we talked for a while, and it was like one of those interviews where it could be like we could have gone for another hour if we wanted to easily. So when you went up there to train the boys, like he told me that they were training in a boxing ring.
It's a MMA ring. It was brutal, man. So we get there. It's Ace Redmond Jr. and I remember Ace worked for Big West and for Thrash out here in the Okanagan. He's semi-retired right now because him and his wife had a kid. So he's off being a good dad. But when he went up there with me, we get there and it's a UFC ring. So it's got all the cross beams going both ways. So it's brutal, right? And like the first bump, I mean, an MMA ring, you're not supposed to take a bump and get back up. You're supposed to stay down. So we had to take out a lot of the pieces, but the middle had to have a cross in the middle of it. And so when I took a bump in the middle of the ring during the first show, I knocked the wind out of myself so hard, because you just take your regular bumps, but now there's extra steel in there, and I thought I was going to die. And when I went and lived there, when we trained in the wintertime, it was nasty. Like it took like a good 2-3 years off my career.
So how did you end up actually like moving there and living there and like training there? Like, I mean, I understand that like your sister knew Des and whatnot, but how does it go from, oh yeah, I know a guy that wrestles, to, hey, now you're moving here and you're training people and living there for like a year or however long you ended up living there for?
Yeah, it's just a little over a year. We jumped the gun. So we did the training and the first show. So we went and trained, then came back, did that first show stuff. And then when I came back, it was during COVID. So back up, let me get this right. So it was during COVID, and jobs here in Kelowna were just garbage. All the bars were closed. I got stuck doing the horrible COVID cop security nonsense at a pharmacy where it's like, could you line up outside? And then guys want to yell at you, and then next thing you know, I was just in full bouncer mode, getting in trouble because I was doing my job. So I just said, you know what, I'm so done with Kelowna right now, it's impossible to live here. So then I got a contract to work at the grocery store, because it's hard to get employees up there, which is a whole political thing, but it was hard. So I got a contract for 2 6-month contracts to go up north and work at the grocery store. So I was working as a baker, and then in my free time was training the guys, and we recorded some shows during COVID when no one else could really do anything.
So when you guys did the shows, that was like no fan shows and stuff?
There was a couple. That were just filmed for YouTube. So that Saturday Night Scoden, a lot of it was just filmed with maybe like 3-4 people would show up, kind of just to hang out. We did a live show because they got clearance to do it because of the spacing of it, and that was like right at the cusp of COVID, quote unquote, ending. And so we did that one big live show. But a lot of it, yeah, was just like 2 or 3 people holding cameras and just cheering us on while we filmed in front of nobody, just to keep the numbers down.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I know that like Squig ran some shows where it was like no fans and stuff too.
Yeah.
I honestly like,
yeah.
I hated wrestling on those shows. I love to wrestle, but I would just
Yeah.
like, they wrestled to Giant Orion in one match, and like the homeboy is huge, and he
Mm-hmm.
give me a big razor's edge, and it's like, oh, there's absolutely no one here. I have no adrenaline now. I just got power bombed, and this sucks. Yeah,
At least with those guys, it was because they were still training and learning, so there was that part of it. So at least it was there. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get up. Like you watched it in the Fed when they're doing those shows in front of nobody in an AEW. It's hard. It's hard to get up for it, but I mean, at least those guys were still learning, and some of them were a little edited, so it almost turned to a couple episodes were like what was it, Lucha Underground, where it's like, all right, cut, let's try this again. So, but I mean, they had to learn, so it's a good way to learn. It's a good way to learn, and then have an edited match where it's like, oh yeah, let's just cut that part out and pretend it didn't happen.
Fair enough. So I would assume too that like, I mean, these guys are brand new to wrestling in general, and like not only would they need like training on the physicality of what goes on in the ring, but also like they probably have never run shows before. So were they seeking advice on that from you as well?
There was some of that too. The first shows were a little weird because it was like there was a whole group at the start of about 6 or 8 people, and now really only the core 2 are left, and that is Dez and Blue. And then Noller Bear came on after that initial group. So I didn't meet Noller Bear with the first group. He kind of joined after, and then he was my one guy that I fully trained myself when I was up there. But the rest of the group they started it was kind of like a community project thing, and then a bunch of people fell by the wayside. So when it first started running, a lot of people had ideas, and Des kind of tried to make it a community group. There's a lot of things run in Inuvik that are run by a committee. And I used to have a grade 9 English teacher, Mr. Hanrahan, that said a camel is a horse built by a committee. And so a lot of people meant well, but then a lot of people are like, I should be in charge of this because I've been in charge of other things. And, I used to be the manager of such and such, so I can run a wrestling show. And it was like, you read the old stories of WCW before Bishop took over, and it's like, oh, Jim Hurd ran Pizza Hut. He should be able to run wrestling. It's like, no, these don't coincide at all. What? So I would because they weren't my shows. When I am not at a Big West show, I kind of just sit back and relax and don't help anybody run stuff because it's your gig. But there were several times I would kind of just gently whisper to Des and be like, you need to nip this in the bud, because there's just a couple people that wanted to run around and pretend they were the boss. It's like, none of you guys are the boss. Like, you didn't take a financial risk, or you're not taking a physical risk, or it's just it was everybody meant well, but it gets to the point where there was so many cooks ruining the proverbial broth and Des is such a nice guy, he doesn't want to put his foot down, so it was a little bit chaotic. But I mean, Ace and I were just there to do a job, and I just kind of said, hey, this is kind of how you want to run a wrestling show in the future. Don't let everyone have a say, because then it's just chaos. But it was fun. It was chaotic, but it was a good chaos.
Right on. I know that Noller Bear did end up coming down to wrestle in Big West. He was on some of the shows that I was on there, and I think that he did a fantastic job. I didn't hear any complaints about him or anything. And I spoke with him and stuff too, and he seemed like a really positive and upbeat guy. Is that kind of like the general attitude of most of those guys up there? Is just like they're just happy to be involved in wrestling?
There's a lot of that. Yeah, Noller Bear is a great dude. Noller Bear is such a natural, gifted athlete that anything he kind of puts his mind to, like he's a firefighter, he builds traditional log homes, he's a mountain climber, like any sort of crazy thing. He's one of these types that are like, I'm gonna do that, and then he does it. And he's picked up wrestling so fast, like to see how far he's come in such a short amount of time. They're all very passionate. Blue loves pro wrestling. It's literally all he thinks about. And Des is such a career entertainer. Like he does the comedy, he does all the other stuff. He almost got he was on the cusp of getting on a TV show recently. The kid's got such great talent, and he's got such a big heart that he wears on his sleeve, so that he swings for the fences, and sometimes when he misses the mark, a lot of us in wrestling, we get used to the idea that, oh, I'm going to try my best, and if it doesn't happen, okay. But Des takes a loss really personally, and which isn't a bad thing. But I've seen the guy get down when it's like, hey, this isn't a big deal. We can pick up the pieces. And he's just so insanely passionate that he's so involved in whatever it is that he's doing that I've seen him take an emotional beating where a lot of us are just kind of like, whatever happens. But so to his credit, though, he's so invested in entertainment and in the community of Inuvik. I'm going to sidebar here is that when I first went there, Ace and I, a lot of people didn't take Des seriously as being an entertainer. They kind of were like, oh, that's Des. He's a daydreamer. He wants to be a wrestler. And then it happened. And the same people that doubted him then turned around and said, oh, I always knew you could do it. And it's like, the hell you did. I saw you in the airport. And you said this was a waste of time. So what are you talking about? But it's kind of in a nutshell where Des puts himself out there and people kind of mock him for it. And then when he proves them wrong, they're like, oh, I knew he could do it all along. Oh, okay, sure. But yeah, he's always swinging for the fences to make something happen in Inuvik.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that they actually did, and like I can appreciate that you went and like helped these guys do this, could like right from the ground up. Like,
yeah,
I mean, there is kind of like a stigma when it comes to like new promoters and stuff. Like, even like just last night I went and wrestled for BEW, and Cloud is generally a pretty new promoter, at least in this area, and like he's not like super like trusted, and I was warned, it might be like a bit of a shit show or whatnot, and no, he did a great job. Like there was like 300 people at that show last night. It was crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I saw the pictures on your page. I didn't know it was BEW, but I was like, oh, that's a great house. Yeah.
It was tremendous.
I think the big thing in towns, because up in Inuvik, there's nothing else. So like, even if, and Des isn't, like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to put on a show. He's run comedy shows. He's run other stuff. So he knows what he's doing. But even if you had no idea what you're doing in Inuvik, because there's zero entertainment, people are going to be like, is there a thing to do this week? Oh, crap. Let's go to the thing, the one thing, right? Because it's such a small town in the middle of nowhere. I think with the situation there, like I don't know the full situation, but I know enough about indie wrestling in towns that, any other promoter is going to say, oh, keep an eye on that guy. It's like, because that's just what promoters do a lot of times, right? There's such in-house infighting and jealousy between promoters because we're all fighting over such small crumbs of a pie that it's like, oh, maybe don't go work over there because that's another competitor, which just it's human nature to kind of be like that. We have promoter discussions here in BC, and some of the guys will say or do things, and it's like, okay, tough guy, like wave your wallet around or whatever. And it just creates animosity that's unnecessary. But it's just the nature of indie wrestling. There's always going to be that kind of, oh, I wouldn't work there if I were you. Well, why not? Well, like, whatever. Go find out for yourself. Right?
Yeah, I definitely like I can understand where you're coming from with that. Like even in Alberta, like there's some promoters that won't let you work for other companies, and there's other ones that will like strongly discourage it, but ultimately won't like not use you if you do. But like it's just one of those things where I think it's more so like, for the most part, it's just the promoters beefing with each other. The boys are they just want to go wrestle. So like,
100%. And a lot of boys will have beefs, but they don't really care. Like if they're in a locker room, I've shared locker rooms with guys that can't flip and stand, and you go up, shake their hand, say hello, and at the end of the night, you shake their hand and go goodbye. And it's like, I had one guy that we had serious beef, and he wanted to talk to me, and I just shook his hand, and I go, I don't have to do any more than this. Like we're not working together, so like hello. Goodbye. Didn't cause any trouble. He did something cool in his match, and I was like, hey, that was pretty sweet. But I mean, it's like working at a job, right? Like if you work at your 9 to 5, you don't have to be friendly to everybody there, but you can't walk around being a dink either. So it's like, you walk in at the start of your shift and go, oh, hey, there's so-and-so that I can't stand, and you give them a nod, and then You just try to avoid him at the coffee machine.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had a couple of those guys where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this person is not nice to me, and I don't particularly like them, but I'm not going to be an asshole to them. I'm not even like, even if they're going to talk to me and like, I mean, Zach Mercury, the universe, used to give me the grief after every match, and like, it would be like, he wouldn't just go, "Oh, you need to stop throwing
Yeah.
the two-handed whip like that." It would be like, "If you ever throw a two-handed whip like that again, I'm going to hit the ring in the middle of your match and break your arm." I was like, oh, "Jesus Christ, man!"
Yeah. Zach's old school, and that's guys.
Yeah.
I always tell a funny story about Michelle Starr because Michelle Starr always gave me the gears out here in BC. And one time I did a show at the old training facility. We did a fundraiser show when Disco Fury, who's now retired, just got inducted into All-Star Hall of Fame this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But he had torn his Achilles, so we did a fundraiser for him. And I was wrestling a match, and I bought something. A guy went for an arm drag, and he botched the arm drag, and I tried to correct it in mid arm drag. And my mom was there. This is long ago. My mom's been passed for almost a decade, so my mom was at the show, and I saw Michelle Starr, and I said, "Hey, sir, did you watch my match?" And he goes, "You screwed up an arm drag. You should just quit," which is what he'd always say to me. And
Yeah.
my mom is 5 feet tall, and Star's like 6'3". She got up in his face, and she's like, "Who the fuck are you to talk to my son like that?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Get her away from me." And I was like, "Dude, you're the one that pissed my mom off. Like that's just dumb." Like,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
she wanted to throw down with the guy. She's like, "How dare he insult you?" And I was like, he's just a miserable promoter. It's what they do. But
Yeah.
that's kind of, guys don't do that like that anymore. Like, you try to, I hate guys. I don't hate. That's such a wasted emotion. But I don't like when guys are like, "Oh, you did everything wrong," or "Nothing was good." It's like, there's no way nothing was good.
Yeah.
Like, at least say,
100%.
"Hey, this was good. I like this." Like, even, let's say this, Kyle. Even if let's say, for devil's advocate, let's say, Kyle, you were the worst wrestler that ever existed. Not remotely. But let's say you were so over as the Goose that covers a lot, man. You come out to that ring and you're honking and everyone's on board with you. The rest is just the stuff you work on. You have charisma, and you know how to work a crowd, and you know how to cut a promo. So you're way ahead of a lot of guys that are considered super workers that couldn't cut a promo to save their life. Right? Like, you can only get so over doing moves. If you don't have people invested in you, then they're not invested in you. And you have people invested in you from the start. So, not to put you over on your own podcast, but
I appreciate it. I just
guys,
like I don't want Merc to think that I'm out here hating on him either.
No, to hell with you, Mark.
To be on there. To be honest, he's kind of a dick, but it also, like, I always did, like, if try to find like the actual good advice, like, okay, I do need to change that. I shouldn't be throwing two arm drags, and I need to be told that so that I can change it. So, like, I made a list of like people that have helped me in wrestling, and he was on the list, and like, it wasn't a positive experience, but it helped.
But sometimes that's the thing, though. Sometimes it helps, and it's for a lot of old school guys, their delivery is bad. I think that's the big issue, is that older school guys before me were treated horribly. So then they kind of treat, because I've been doing this for 22 years, and guys that have been around like me, like Cremator and I talk about this, we kind of got treated really poorly. I got some physical abuse, but a lot of it was just mental and verbal abuse, and just like, you suck, never shouldn't be around here, you're never going to amount to anything, get lost, no one wants you. And it's just like, it's not like that anymore. So yeah, and a lot of that stuff is just gone by the wayside, and now it's more like, hey, let's be more inclusive. My big thing when I try to mentor people is, how do we make this better? How do we make this better for everybody, and for the fans to enjoy it, for you to enjoy your time out here, as long as you're being safe? I mean, man, to be like, "Oh, you don't deserve to be in my business," none of us are superstars. We're just out here living a dream, and to squash someone else's dream to make yourself feel good is pretty weak in general, I think.
Like, bro, we're both working at the
Yep.
Legion tonight. Like,
Exactly,
you
right?
know?
Exactly. We're both scrounging quarters to buy a beer later, so get off my case. I made a joke in Victoria. 365. You worked in 365 shows.
Yeah,
They have
yeah,
an
I had a great time there.
outstanding locker room. It's probably the best mix I've seen of vets and young people that just love wrestling and want to have a good time. I went down there for Victoria. Couple weeks ago, and I just had the best time just sitting back there, and I would just throw out an idea to someone. It's like, hey, this could look so much better if you did this, and they're like, oh, sweet, thanks. But it was just that good vibe of just wanting to. And I made the joke that I was like, I can't stand cliques and guys that kind of try to bully people in locker rooms. It's like, we're all just theater dorks. I don't understand why we're picking on each other. We're some of the dorkiest people on the planet when you think about it. Like, we like
Yeah.
wrestling. We dress up in our underpants and wrestle. Like, this is so silly when you think about it. And then we try to act like we're cool. It's like, how is any of this cool?
Like 100%. Like I
But you know
when
what
I
I
was in
mean?
high
It's like,
school,
what?
when I was in high school, I was like involved in a lot of like improv, and then
Yes.
after high school, I did improv shows for money and stuff. And wrestling is just improv with fighting. Like,
100%, right? 100%.
yeah.
And to act like you're so good at this, it's like none of it's, we're just trying to put on a good show.
And
I
I
don't.
can appreciate great athletes and
Yes.
stuff, of course, and I'm always striving to do better. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've just recently started throwing like Hurricane Ranas into my repertoire and stuff,
I saw
and
that
like,
stuff with Blaze was insane, and then the match you had with KB6 right after, putting in
yeah,
that good little. You got some totally new stuff that you've been putting out there. I put it on one of the talk down shows showing your
yeah, no,
stuff.
I
You and
appreciate
Blaze, and it
that.
was awesome. And not just with Blaze, you and KB6, but I mean those guys are super athletic, but they're only half the thing, right? So I mean, for you to pull off a Hurricane Rana with a great wrestler like a Blaze or a KB6, I mean you're still pulling it off. So good on you, brother, and that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, but I do think that like I like doing the Hurricane Ranas and the head scissors and the
Mm-hmm.
suicide dives and stuff, but my bread and butter is the honk honk honk. Like
100%.
that's like what my appeal is, right?
100%.
So yeah,
But look at I mean, you can do the honking way longer than you can do a Hurricane Rana.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
under
you would like to be out there at 50 and get a pop and do nothing but honk and maybe throw a couple elbows, and we all want that. We all want that honky tonk man payday and work day at the end when we're in our 50s. Do absolutely nothing. Go out there and do. All right, brother, we're gonna go out there. I'm gonna honk a couple times and hit you with an elbow. 1, 2, 3, we're done. And it's like, okay, sure.
yeah, I'm
Whatever you
not
say,
ashamed
Mister
to
Goose.
say that I would be happy to do that when I sadly quite soon get to be that age.
When they're totally broken down and can't do nothing. I made that one time, first time I ever worked at Agri Fair in Abbotsford, 2009. The Honky Tonk Man was the headliner, and I was still married, and my wife was super critical of wrestling, and she goes, "This Honky Tonk Man guy just does the same crap every time." I go, "Yeah, that's genius." That is
Yeah.
literally. I go. He also got paid 1,500 times more than the rest of us. Like that's just. She's like, why? I go because he's great at that. That's what you want to do. You want to be so good that you can just come out and poorly sing your theme song from 40 years ago and get paid a fortune, and everyone goes home happy. You're like, did you see that? Yeah, the match is atrocious. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have seen the Honky Tonk Man wrestle numerous times. He's like on my list of dudes that I wish I could wrestle. Like, I bet
It'd
you
be
me and
super
the Honky
easy.
Tonk Man would have a great match. It would be
Yeah.
super fun and like a pretty easy night, you know?
Yeah. No, it'd be super
Yeah.
easy payday. He would take 0 bumps. You would take 1. And yeah, it'd be awesome. Then you go get drunk.
Have you wrestled Honky Tonk Man?
No, I've had him on shows. I never wrestled him. Yeah, you could get drunk before and after. It'd be a wonderful time. You'd have the best time.
Well,
You might not remember any of
I
it.
don't
You might
ever
not
get
remember.
drunk beforehand, but afterwards, especially if it's like with the Honky Tonk Man, who could pass up an opportunity like that, you know?
No, totally. Yeah, just don't try to drink them. Don't try to match them beer for beer. You'll be in trouble.
Yeah, no, no, no. I'll be tapping out quite quickly there. That brings me back to Totally Arctic Wrestling.
Yes,
Like,
just get on track here.
is that do they even have booze up there? Because like,
Oh
isn't
yeah.
a lot of those communities like dry communities and stuff?
The smaller ones are. Inuvik is like one of the bigger towns now, and Inuvik has a liquor store. And actually, there's way less taxes on liquor in Inuvik. So the one plus working there was booze was cheaper, plus or minus
Huh.
depending. But definitely a minus when it's like 6 months of the year when there's no sunlight and you just go home every day after work and drink a 6-pack of beer and watch movies and it's pitch black. You go to work in the dark, you come home in the dark. But yeah, there's there's booze. There's booze. They don't when we do the shows are super family friendly, so they don't have any alcohol there. But yeah, so there's no like, I mean, there is a Legion, but it's super tiny, so it's not like doing a Legion show. But yeah, there's definitely booze there. Trust
Oh,
me.
okay.
They got a bar called the Trapper that is straight out of the Wild West. It's a total gong show, but
Nice,
in
nice.
sometimes in a fun way, sometimes in a we got to go.
One of the other ways that I kind of found out about Des was about the recent documentary about the Northern
Yeah.
tours. I'm just wondering, have you done any of those Northern tours? It seems like the sort of thing that you might have been involved in.
Twice I had a chance, and then real life kind of got in the way. The one that I was like super set to go for, the job I had was at a call center in Nanaimo, and they switched the contract up a month before, and it was like anyone that all vacations got canceled, and if anyone went on vacation, they basically get fired. And I had 2 little kids at the time, so I was like, I can't go. And then it kind of just, I think it's that stage right now where that option is kind of not on the table for me. Is
Fair
what it
enough.
is.
Yeah. So getting back to Big West Wrestling, because like you said, you went up there to train those fellas. Did Big West take a sabbatical at that time, or did you consider doing like co-promoting, like if Big West presents like an Arctic show or anything like that?
Des made that joke one time because when he first started, he was just so happy to be wrestling. He goes, "Oh, we could be part of Big West," and I was like, "No, dude, do your own thing. Like, you don't need to be. I'm not that greedy of a promoter that it's like, oh, the Big West, totally Arctic division." But it's not moment of truth. But no, but anyway, no, I just was during COVID, so it's just like, it's on a break. Everything was on a break, right? So in
Yeah.
BC specifically, because it was just not, wrestling wasn't happening. So I was like, yeah, I'll go up there and I'll just, was going up for at least for a year just to see what happened, right? And if it was more fruitful. We actually almost brought up my Big West ring. And then when that second contract fell through and I didn't get a third contract, I came home and then that didn't happen. Then they finally they wait until I left, and now they got a sweet pro ring that's like really comfy. And of course they waited till I left.
But apparently the building that they train in has no insulation, and
Oh,
so
no.
it's still inside is like -30. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
watching an Instagram video that
Yeah.
Nolan Bear put up today, and he was training in a full like winter outfit. They were doing rolls, and I was like, good on them for being that dedicated. Like we had a cold spell here in Alberta like a couple of weeks ago, and I did walk to the training center like once or twice in -20-degree weather, and it was enough for
No.
me to be like, if I can't get a bus or catch a ride, I'm just not going, because it's very hard to wrestle when you have pneumonia or the flu.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Are you dying of exposure on the side of the road? But I did one match up there. It's on the Skodins. It's Nolan Bear and I, and it was -15. And I thought I was coughing up blood, but it's like, remember being a kid in like elementary school, you'd have to go do an outside run in the winter because your PE teacher was a utter sadist, and you'd feel like you were coughing up blood. It's like all the little things that in your lungs will burst, and it feels like you're coughing up blood, but you're not. But it was brutal. Like -15, we wrestled, and every bump hurt. It was a great match, but I was like, oh, this is. We were supposed to do another match, and I was like, nope, not happening. Not
I
happening.
mean,
It's too
I
damn
know
cold.
that when I wrestled you, you just sported like a pair of like trunks. Like it was, like I don't think you had a shirt on or
Nope.
even like long tights. It was just like
Nope.
straight up like wrestling trunks. Like, is that what you were
Mm-hmm.
wearing in -50?
I think I wore long trunks. Yeah, and I just wore long trunks. I was like, no, I'm gonna do this right. And it was like, this was the dumbest idea I've ever had. It's like when I saw them in their parkas, I was like, that's why when Des and I did our other match for our second scrapyard match, we were fully dressed up because I was like, I'm not fighting in the scrapyard in the winter in anything but a parka. So yeah.
Fair
Yeah,
enough. Fair enough.
there's definitely weather restrictions to some stuff up there. Like you can, yeah, it's cold in Alberta, but yeah, it's super cold up there.
Right on. Well, how have your Big West shows been going lately? Because I know that you're now back in BC and you're running those shows pretty steadily now.
You know what, Big West, we took a big hit with COVID, and there was a lot of changes to the landscape. And when I came back, and there's a lot of battle lines drawn, which is what it is. It's the nature of indie wrestling. Sometimes promotions don't get along, sometimes they don't, and there's a lot of battle lines drawn. And I had to, when I first came back, there was some financial issues, and I had to cancel some shows. And it just it's been hard to get a decent momentum. We had a really good show in Big White on Valentine's Day. Big White's been good to us. Powell River, Sunshine Coast has been really good to us. Just rebuilding the other towns like Enderby and Summerland. We finally back in Summerland and just started in Falkland. So there's a lot of potential here. It's just been a slow regrowth, and I've got a lot of it. I'm just doing a lot of it myself, and I've just been burnt out. And so I'm just doing the best we can.
Yeah, I think that was like one of the things I noticed about your shows is like you take on everything. Like there's not a lot of like micromanagement or help going on there for you.
I found a lot of times volunteers are great, but I think anyone that's ever worked in indie wrestling, you'll see that a lot of volunteers like to get paid in the drama they create. And it's just like, I don't need. We went through a lot of stuff during the time off where a lot of the former Big West volunteers were just causing so much unnecessary drama that I just couldn't put up with it anymore. And I just decided it would be better to just cut them all loose and start fresh. And I just found it was easier just to make sure stuff got done myself, and which is not the best way to run stuff because it just wore me the heck out. I am taking a sabbatical now for 7 months, but Big West is going to run in my stead, and I've delegated a lot. So you got a whole crew now, which is really awesome, but just took a while to find a new crew again.
So, solid. So who's kind of who's taking over for you?
Well, I'm still the overseer, but the senior booker kind of supervisor will be Todd Quality, who has been really underrated out here in BC as far as everyone knew he was entertaining and could work, and he's a legit tough guy. I mean, he's got multiple medals, and I think he's a blue belt in judo, at the very least a blue belt, but he's got lots of medals in judo. So he's not to be messed with, but he's also a good calming influence. I know a lot of young guys, this newest crop of young guys in Vancouver and Noller Bear too, guys like that, they all come to him when they need advice or someone to have their back. And he's just really proven to have really matured. He used to be, when I first met him, when he first started 15 years ago, he was just legitimately a dumb kid that drove me crazy. I was like, who let their child back here? Like, whose kid is this? I was like, no, he's 18 and he's a wrestler. It's like, all right, you say so. But no, he's really super matured, and he's just become this really good presence where, yes, he can be kind of a lovable goofball, but when it comes time to be serious, he can also get a lot done. So I want to see what he can do as being given a chance to kind of book. And then, of course, his pesky manager, Lance Skulls, will be in his ear because Lance is like an earwig that you can't get rid of, more like a tick that you can't really get rid of. So yeah, they'll be doing that. And then I got some people here locally. They run a company called Dirty D's Dump Runs, where they do a lot of stuff. They take stuff to the dump. They help people in need. They haul stuff up and down the Coquihalla, and they're doing stuff behind the scenes. And I got some other people here that are also been some really good volunteers for me. So it's nice to kind of have a little group that kind of wants to see Big West succeed, whereas maybe wasn't the same. I didn't have that same kind of support for the past year before then.
That's fair. I mean, I got to meet Todd Quality when I came out for your shows, and he seemed like a really nice guy and stuff. And like he was always joking around and whatnot. And actually, he really, really actually reminds me of just like when you speak to him, the way he like talks and just how he comes across is he's kind of like the Sean Martins of BC, you know? Like we got a guy called the headline Sean Martins
Yeah.
here in
Yeah.
Alberta. And I was just like, are these guys like brothers? Because like they're both like judo guys and they
Yeah.
both have like that same vocal like quality to them. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, we like me and KB6 were joking. It was like it's a Sean Martin's clone or something, you know?
Yeah, I know. I've only met Martins a couple times. I know he's very loud, crazy talented, like really good
Yeah,
worker,
and
really good worker.
another thing about Martins, and obviously this just adds to the clone aspect with dog quality, is that Martins really, really like helps out at like a lot of shows, like at CWE and stuff.
Yeah.
Martins sets up all their equipment for the like the jumbo screen and
Mm-hmm.
the music, and he takes
Mm-hmm.
care of all that stuff during the show most of the time. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's he really really does like lend a hand to that. I owe Sean Martins a lot of gratitude because he actually drove me out to do the shows in Manitoba that I was on, and so
Oh, right on. That's
I'm
awesome.
yeah.
And you know what? It's guys like that. Like Martin's just probably been around that same number of years. I know he's been in over a decade. Was he sitting at 15 years ish too? I think.
I'm not sure.
But you get to that certain level once you hit beyond that 10 years where you want to be like you want to help out other people. One would hope, unless you're super
Yeah,
miserable. But
and I
yeah,
mean,
it's usually
like,
just
don't
like,
get
you
me
know what?
wrong, Martins can
Yeah,
be pretty grouchy sometimes, but
aren't we all?
when he's in a good mood, like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's in a really good mood, and he's always helpful, even if he is
No.
grouchy. It's just because, you know, you probably deserve to be grouched at, you know?
I don't. That's the thing is that people. I come off pretty gruff, but I mean, I'm always trying to help. But yeah, I think you get to a certain stage, and you're like, yeah, let me help somebody else. Someone helped me, I should help. I should help them. Or someone didn't help me, I want to be the guy that helps. And we talk about this
Mhm.
here. Like my buddy Cremator who runs VIPW, we talk about trying to make things better for the next group. Like, you know, just because say someone was mean to you all the time and said everything you did sucked doesn't mean you got to tell the next rookie that everything he does sucks. You
Yeah,
know,
no, I don't
no.
think there's a lot of like positive in that. Like, I mean, even like I was saying earlier about like Merck and
Mm-hmm.
he would tell me to quit and stuff, and it was like, if I quit, I'm not going to get any better at this, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's why I didn't quit.
About 10
Um,
matches in, I wrestled Bishop, who Bishop's been over doing this over 20 years too. And we were both pretty green. And a fan said, I hope I never see Marty Sugar wrestle again. And that was literally 21 years ago. And it was like, hey, kiss my ass.
yeah,
My
yeah,
10
like,
matches in and you're telling me to never wrestle again. It's like, how about you let me get, like, I don't know, how about you let me at least get like 50 matches in before you
mhm.
say I'm that horrible.
I'm pretty sure that the fella I wrestled last night, his name is Red Jackson. I'm pretty sure he's only had like 4 or 5 matches.
Yeah.
But like it made me kind of feel good last night to be put in a position where I was required to like lead him through a match, and you
And,
know that's not something they usually have me do. But
no, and that's how you learn. Because how long you been wrestling now, Carl?
well, I mean, I my first match was October the 13th, 2018. But
Okay,
like I
so
did just return from a year long stint where I didn't get to wrestle because of my knee.
no, so you're at that stage though where you've been doing this for about what do you want to say 6 7 years, and that's how you learn though. You can't just learn. You can't just always be the guy who's the greenhorn in the match, right?
Mhm.
Eventually, you kind of got to get. But once you hit that 6 or 7 year mark, you get kind of thrown to the wolves and go, okay, here's some new guys, make it work, and you're like, oh, okay. Well, that's how you learn. Like that's one of the pluses, regardless of anything that's going on with me and Thrash Wrestling now. When I first moved out here to the Okanagan 15 years ago, I went and started working for Thrash. First of all, because former promoter down in Vancouver said I wasn't allowed to. And I was like, you know, I'm not moving to Kelowna to get told what to do by some doofus in Vancouver. But
Yeah, I'm
man,
sure he didn't sign you to an exclusive
no,
contract.
exactly,
So like,
exactly, right. But it was just that's the way the things were. You can only work for me. You book me one time a month. So no, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, a lot of the guys there were either super green, and they have a couple that thankfully don't wrestle anymore that weren't trained at all. So when you went in there, it was like I had to do if this was going to go more than 4 minutes of just garbage, I had to do a lot of work. And I learned to become a really good worker making chicken salad out of chicken shit, because there was just a lot of bad wrestling up there. Aside from Michael Moore and Slave, everyone else that worked for Thrash was utterly should never been in a wrestling ring. So then you're getting paid to drag these guys to. I wrestled one guy for half an hour. Michelle Starr was like, "Why'd you wrestle that guy that long?" And I was like, "To prove I could." Like, and I wasn't like it was garbage. I dragged him to a good match for half an hour, and it was like just say I could do it. Like 110-degree weather in August. I was like, "Yeah, no, we're doing this." Because that's how you learn. I was like, by that point, I was like 8 years in, and I wanted to show that I knew what the hell I was doing. So it kind of helps to work greener guys, because then and then the cool thing about greener guys too, and this is the cool thing about training, is that you're constantly having to remember the fundamentals, and you're constantly getting better because you're constantly, it's like cement. When cement gets wet, it gets stronger. It's why it's used in pylons and bridges. So you're constantly strengthening yourself. So that's the good thing about working guys that are greener, or working at a school, or helping train people. You're just always getting better.
Yeah, no, I like I really appreciated like the opportunity, and like I learned stuff from him too. Like
100%.
we did this weird thing where he put me in a hammerlock and I went for the reversal, but he did this weird thing where I just ended up back in a hammerlock again. And we did it like 3 times as like a comedy thing, and then I popped him with an elbow, and he gave me a hip toss, and it was yeah, it was like a cool little sequence that he taught me, and like I will probably pitch to other people to use in matches, because I was so, I thought it was such a great little spot,
And that's what excites you when you go. Like, you see people that are, loyalty is wonderful, but it only goes so far. Like, if you're trained by one promotion and you only work for that promotion and you only work the guys you've been trained against, you're only going to work one style. The Lionsgate Dojo is great out here in Vancouver. There's other great training schools too, but the dojo isn't affiliated with the promotion, and it's got like 5 trainers. So you learn different styles, then you kind of go everywhere. So it's not like 365 has a spectacular school with Eddie and Devin Shooter out there, and Hibiko.
I actually, when I went to Victoria to wrestle, I went and trained with them a couple of times. And actually, Eddie was, I think he had COVID at the time or something, and he was sick. And their students there were all fairly inexperienced. I think that we were all pretty much on equal footing, and they wanted me to like lead the class and stuff. And I was like, well, all right, boys. I mean, I can tell you like the drill. I'm not the one that you should be learning how to do wrestling moves from, but I can, if you know how to do the movements already, I can tell you the way that MRB has us do them and lead you through like the sequences and stuff. And yeah, we did that. And then there was even one guy, and I think he wrestles as like the Rad Dad or something.
Rad Dad's awesome.
Yeah, he was great, and he was just like looking for something, and I suggested, oh well, why don't you have your opponent go up on all fours, and then you stand on top of him, and then drop a big elbow, like.
Wait, that was your idea, you SOB. He pulled that on me in Victoria.
Yeah. I said get on him and surf a little, and then jump off and do an elbow onto him, and then I'm pretty sure it's become like a big. I'm pretty sure, he just started doing it, and I was like, "This is cool that like people will take your ideas,
But that's the thing, though, right? So you went to the school, and you're like, "Okay, well, this is how MRB does it at Clandestine," and it's okay. Well, that's not how we do it here, but you're learning, right? It's not saying, "Oh, MRB is a better trainer than Eddie, or Eddie is a better trainer than MRB." It's like, this is how we do it here. This is how we do it there. So now you're learning different stuff, and even just going and working different promotions, you're learning things, and you're meeting people you'd never meet before, and you're going to learn stuff. When I went to 365, I wrestled Rad Dad 2 matches in a row, and like he's the 42-year-old rookie, and he takes notes for an entire match. And I kind of teased him about it. It's like, oh, you need notes? But then when we were in the back, I was like, wait, I'm 49 now. I just turned 49, and I get super forgetful about stuff. So I was like, wait, where's the notes? And I looked, and I remember the whole match, because I was like, wait, why do I not write down notes? And so Marty Royale, who's another one of these older rookies. He's with the dojo and he refs as well. So Marty Royale was writing out his match. Like, are you writing out your match? He goes, yeah. And I go, no, it's awesome. Whatever works, buddy. Like, I would never do that before. It's like, oh, Macho Man used to do it. It was like, he was the only guy that did it and he was crazy. But now everybody does it. It's like, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because like that's not something I had really seen a lot of, and I
No.
think the first person I saw do that was Keishi Matsunaga from Calgary, who
Yep.
actually has been wrestling since like he had been in Mat Rats in like 2001, and so like I was asking, I
We
was like,
gone way back.
you write your stuff down? It's like, yeah, and I mean like just because it's written down doesn't mean it's like written like in stone. Like if you go out there and something else happens, like especially if it's a guy like that who has like 20 years of experience, like he knows how to work on the fly too, you know.
Yep.
So like if you do forget something, but like it is like there's nothing wrong with having like a plan. I don't think, you know, but also
I
like
like when I like that the two kind of are coming together now, because you got guys that overly plan too much stuff, or you got
mhm,
guys that plan absolutely nothing, which is also super stressful. So I'm not gonna
mhm.
plan anything. Okay, that's we're taking this too easy, brother. Like, that's like, give me at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
something, right? But that's like, yeah, it's kind of cool that the old and new school styles have kind of meshed and created something new, and that stuff's awesome, right? Like, wrestling's got to evolve, not just in the ring, but in the locker rooms too. Like, we talk about being more positive in the locker room, talking about being more accepting of different kind of people, and just, yeah, it's just wrestling's got to evolve and change and be better all the time. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, like I mean, even like I remember when me and you had our match for the Big West title, and like we had some things planned, but it
Mm-hmm.
all just ended up being like, you know, I don't think we did all the stuff in the order that we had
No.
planned to do it in. It just, you know, ended up everything happened, and we had a tremendous amount of fun, and like the crowd seemed to dig the shit out of the match and stuff. So,
Well, that's the thing. The crowd had fun. We had fun. No one got hurt. And because I think both you and I kind of focus a lot on, I like to sit there and go, oh, what are you guys in the mood for right now? And sometimes with a younger guy that wants to plan every spot, you can't improvise. And then that's where I find, if you're not willing to improvise, that's where you get matches that are really good, but the crowd's not buying it because they weren't in the mood for it.
mhm.
And I used to watch. I watch a lot of local comedy here in Kelowna, and the successful comics are the ones that know how to call an audible. Like, I've seen comics that just, I have a set. This is my 8 minutes. I'm doing my 8 minutes, and the crowd
Mhm.
doesn't want to hear it. So you don't. So your set sucks, but it's not the crowd's fault. Your set sucked. You didn't do anything to get the crowd on your side. That's you as an entertainer. We have a guy out here named David Kopp who runs comedy. He's the Marty Sugar of comedy, or I'm the David Kopp of wrestling. I'm not sure which, but David Kopp. We had a show one time at the bar I worked at where no one was in the mood to watch comedy. It was just comedy at a bar. No, everyone just was just a miserable Wednesday, and people just wanted to drink and forget their troubles. And so Dave just got up there and goes, "What do you guys want to talk about?" And someone threw out something dumb, and he just started riffing. And all of a sudden, it was like 15 minutes went by, and everyone was like, "Oh, that was a lot of fun." Because he literally
Yeah.
just was like, "You tell me," because every one of my guys has come up here and he shit on him. So what do you want to talk about? And I don't remember what the dumb thing was. He just riffed on it. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So it's
like
like,
that.
mhm,
One of the things I just like appreciate so much about like wrestling and
mhm,
whatnot. Like, yeah, you relate it to comedy, and I always relate it back to improv
yeah,
because like
100%.
when you were talking earlier about people that don't want to plan anything, like
Mhm,
I literally like I know I tell this a lot on here, but I walked up to a guy once and was like, "Hey man, we're wrestling tonight. What do you want to do?" And he was like, "You know how to wrestle. I'll see you out in the ring." And I was like, okay, like the first time that happened to me, I was like flabbergasted because everybody always liked to plan a lot of stuff,
mhm,
and like I've kind of gotten to the point where even I'm used now to like okay, we plan stuff from the start and we plan stuff at the end, and then you
mhm.
know during the heat, just you know tell me what you want me to do, right? Like
Yep.
call it to me out there,
Yep.
and like that's kind of what I did last night with Red Jackson was like
Mhm,
we had a solid beginning and then we had a solid ending sequence and then I told him in the middle I'm just going to beat you up and if I
mhm.
pick you up to do anything to you I'll let you know what I want you to do and yeah like it was cool that
Yep.
I got to be on the other side of that and then like even I talked to when Speedball Mike Bailey came
Mm-hmm.
for Love Wrestling last year, and he did a seminar. I asked him about that. I said, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, if you walk up to the guy and they're just like, oh, I'll see you out in the ring, and he was like, okay, well, you just be like, yeah, okay, cool, but like, how about I throw a couple arm drags and like. And then sometimes I was just like, so basically you just like manipulate them into declining the match anyways. And he was like, yeah, pretty much.
Well, hey, at least that's good locker room politics instead of the bad stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, cool, we'll do it all out there, but what about this, and this? No, that's actually a really nice way to do it. Yeah, totally. I mean, the opposite, you could just get butthurt and be like, I don't want to work this guy. He's totally difficult or whatever. I remember Raven, he had these educational series of podcasts that are amazing.
Yes.
If you can find them, they're brilliant.
And he talks about
he talks about one where Rick Steiner, there's this indie guy from Virginia who's like an indie legend. I can't remember his name now, but he was working Rick Steiner, and he kind of walked in and goes, hey, Rick, and I think he was either too aggressive on trying to plan stuff. He picked Rick Steiner off anyway. And Raven was like, Rick, just take it easy. The guy's just super excited to work with you. And then it ended up where Rick Steiner got annoyed and just beat the crap out of the guy in the ring. And not only did he beat him up, like Rick Steiner beat him up. So it was brutal. Yeah. And it was like, none of this had to happen if you two, because Rick was like, I don't want to be bothered in the back. So the guy got angry, and then Rick got angry, and then the guy pissed off the wrong dude, Steiner. So it ended up being really gross. And Raven was like, this is how you don't do this. So maybe go, hey, could you maybe give me a little bit to work with or whatever, right? Instead of getting your back up, because that's the last thing you need to go into the ring in a bad mood with the guy you're about to wrestle. It's not going to make life any better for anybody.
Yeah, like it was a stressful situation for me, like that when that happened, but like it worked out fine. And then literally, like I ended up wrestling, like it was Dead Zone, right? Like I literally ended up wrestling with him numerous other times, and the last time I wrestled him, he was literally like, okay, yeah, the finish is I'm gonna throw a spin kick, you duck, I'll throw another one, you duck. I'll go for a third one, you duck that one, and I'll roll you up and pin you. And I was like, okay, cool. And the rest of it was just like done in the ring. And it wasn't a 5-star match by any means. It was like legit. I wrestled as evil Santa Claus against a guy in a Deadpool costume. So like, it was what it was, but it was pretty entertaining for what it was. And it was just because like at that point, I just go, okay, well, this is an improv game now with fighting.
Well, and Dead Zone likes to improvise a lot. I remember I worked him and he decided because someone had thrown a banana, so he decided he was going to try and stick the banana in my butt, and I was like, awesome. I drove all the way to Edmonton for this, but but it was fine. I was just like rolling my eyes. I was like, all right, we'll go with it, because he thought it was funny, and I was like, okay, I mean, at least one of us is having fun. I didn't get hurt, so I was like, okay, whatever.
No, not all of his ideas are bangers. And like legit, like one of the things I learned in the first match I had with him where he did that to me and was like, yeah, I'll see you out there, was like, okay, if I don't do something to this guy, then I'm not gonna get any offense in this match. And I literally, like, at one point had to muscle him into the corner and just start fighting back. And
sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a good lesson, though, I think, and like it's one of those things that I really appreciated because it gave me a bit of experience. Like you're gonna deal with all kinds of different people on the complete other end of the spectrum. The match I had with MRB last week was planned like top to bottom, and I actually got overwhelmed. It was like, wow, this is a lot, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to remember all this. And MRB being classic MRB, we went out. We did the whole match. Everything went fine. I remembered all my spots. He was calling the whole thing too, and like not to kill the magic or anything, but like he just said you need to get out of your head and have more confidence because like you did a good job and maybe try doing this more. So. Yeah,
that's one big thing is I find a lot of younger guys, or when not even younger, but I mean, you're stepping in the ring with one of the best in Western Canada. Let's be honest, right?
Mhm.
I mean, Blaze has been doing this for 100 years, right? So, I mean, we started wrestling. He was like 14 years old, right? So, I mean, like he's been doing it since he was a kid. Now he's a grown ass man, and he's been doing it for so long. He's such a natural. But a lot of these young guys get either intimidated by that or just intimidated by the whole thing. You get in your own head. We got a guy out here, Johnny Roston, who's an amazing talent as a
Oh, I
character.
remember
Yeah,
him. Yeah.
yeah, and but sometimes in the match he'll get in his own head, and you can see it. And it's like, man, let it go. Him and I worked some hardcore matches, so we were just freeform and stuff. And he's like, oh, this is so much easier. It's like, yeah, you don't have to punch you in the face so hard, buddy. But I mean, other than that, it was just fun. We just had fun, and whatever happened, happened, and it didn't matter. But I find that's the planning thing. I've had those overplanned matches. I worked the Voros twins, and I've worked the Voros twins 3 times. And once they planned a bunch of stuff, but I made my tag partner do all the stuff because I'm like, I can't remember this. And another time, a bunch of us just didn't let them get their stuff in, which was kind of a dick move, but it was also kind of funny in like a locker room rib thing. And then the third time I wrestled, I was like, hey, do your match. I'll do everything you want to do. And we did the whole thing. And then in the back, the one said to me, oh, you missed 2 spots. And I was like, oh, 98 out of 100. That's an A plus. And they're like, no. And I was like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I got an A plus with the Voros twins. And they're like, no, but you missed. I was like, I don't care. I don't care, man. Like you literally planned to the point where they had planned so much stuff that the one brother turned to the other and finally said, I think that's enough. And I was like, oh, wait, oh, is there dissension amongst the Voros twins? We don't need any more. So we've already planned 100 things. How about 101? No. I was like, oh, okay. They do know when to stop. All right, awesome.
I was supposed to be in a tag team match against the Voros twins one time. It was going to be me, and I think it was a 6-person tag. I'm pretty sure it was the Voroses and somebody else against. It was supposed to be me, Dead Zone, and Kenny Johnson. And Kenny Johnson, also a real old school brother, and like I think they may have just talked to the Voros twins for 10 minutes and then went and got the match changed with Squig so that we were not involved with them. And I was a little bummed out because the Voros twins are like, you know, they've been on TV and stuff. I like those guys, but they're kind of like their matches are fantastic, but they are kind of like ditzy dudes, you know what I mean?
And you know what? They've become so. I'm so proud of them for transitioning beyond indie wrestling to now like they're just social media stars. Yeah. And like you see, it's so funny because you see it on like, oh, the most famous people on TikTok, and you're like, I know those two. Like, how are these guys like they're become like these global names off of TikTok? And I was like, well, that's just genius. Like, that's way easier than going out there and beating the crap out of them.
Yeah, there's usually like on the shows I've been on with them, they're like the most widely known. Like I've seen like teenage girls are showing up with Voros signs and they don't know nothing. Like these are not girls that come to any of the other wrestling shows or anything. They're just there to see the Da Vinci guys, you know?
But that's how you expand your brand, right? Is you want to have people out there. You have to, and people get mad when celebrities are at WrestleMania. It's like, oh, you're taking spots away. It's like, yeah, but the people that were going to come watch Cody Rhodes or the people that were going to come watch Dolph Ziggler were going to come watch wrestling. It didn't matter that Dolph Ziggler was there. That's a better example than Cody. But like a guy like Dolph gets pulled from a WrestleMania for like a reality star. It's like, yeah, but those are bringing new faces to wrestling that hopefully will stick around. And that's why you're supposed to bring in, like when you book a name to come to a small town, right? Like when the Honky Tonk Man comes to Nanaimo, it's not so that people be like, oh, I know the Honky Tonk Man. That's how I got introduced to indie wrestling back in '97. I was at the video store buying VHS wrestling pay-per-views, and the guy's like, hey, you know the Honky Tonk Man's in town? And I was like, why would the Honky Tonk Man be in Nanaimo? It's like, oh, he's wrestling the Centennial Building. What the hell is the Centennial Building? And then it turns out it's like, it used to be like the Madison Square Garden of Nanaimo for indie wrestling. And I went to the show, and it was Honky Tonk Man, and he did a shtick. But then I was like, oh my God, there's all these amazing wrestlers. Like Ladies' Choice was there, and Tony Casino was there, and Mike Grizzelli and Randy Tyler, and the late Adam Firestorm. And I was like, oh my God, indie wrestling is awesome. And that's the whole point of this, is you bring people in that wouldn't have gone.
All those guys were like on the first indie shows that I ever went to as well,
right?
in Victoria.
That's me too, right? We're talking like 27 years ago now. So that I go to these shows and go, oh, well, the Honky Tonk Man's not coming back, but who cares? That match was like whatever, but like, oh, these other guys are great. I want to see these guys again, and that stuff's cool. So that's the whole point of bringing in names or celebrities to wrestling, is that non-wrestling fans will come and go, oh, hey, this is kind of fun.
I've even seen we had an RCW show, and it was I can't remember what small town it was in, but it was in a small town, Alberta town, and the main event was it was Steve Wild and Vance Nevada
Mm-hmm.
against I can't remember who, and the mayor of the town.
Yep.
And they
Oh
literally
yeah.
had the mayor of the town
Mm-hmm.
in his first ever match in the main event,
Mm-hmm.
and the match went great. Like it was,
Mm-hmm.
like obviously the mayor didn't go out there and do a Canadian destroyer on
No.
Vance Nevada, but like it was a lot of fun. Like,
And then you take the mayor, so you teach the mayor for 10 minutes how to be a wrestler, hopefully a
mhm.
little bit more than that. But then you've got Steve Wild and Vance Nevada, who could both wrestle a broomstick to like a 3.5-star match. So it's like, yeah, cool, awesome. That's what you do, right? The Bollywood boys have done that too. They did it in Prince George one time with a local DJ. That's another one. You bring the local DJ guy out. But I know they did one in Prince George with a local DJ, and the DJ didn't want to take any bumps. So I think Harv just chopped the bejesus out of him for 10 minutes. It's like, hey, you don't have to bump, but you're going to regret it. So it's like, whatever you want, sir. And then, but everyone had fun. So that's what you want.
Yeah. That's amazing. Like that guy's got a story to tell now, because like the Bollywood
Mm-hmm.
boys went on to be like WWE superstars, and
Yep.
now
Yep.
like he could say, "Oh yeah, one time I just showed up at a wrestling show and I wrestled these guys," and then like a couple years later they were getting slammed through tables by
That guy
Randy
beat the
Orton.
crap out of me, and then Randy Orton killed them both on pay-per-view.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we've reached the hour mark here, Marty. I just want to find out though. Do you have give me one more, just a good story from your time in Totally Arctic Wrestling?
You know what? One of the funniest things is, if first of all, go find Des Loreen. That's Destro's real name. Find his comedy stuff. He has some really funny, not safe for work comedy. But he talks about how he grew up without a dad, and him and I look a lot alike. So I would joke that I was his long lost dad, even though I'm literally only 8 years older than him. So, but when I was talking, when we were working on stuff, Colin Cutler helped train the guys for me here in the Okanagan. And he talks about how when you throw a Larry, like you're throwing a baseball, so you don't do that horrible over the top, super phony miss Larry. Just always throw it the same way, right? And if you don't duck, that's your fault, not
Yeah,
mine.
I had
So
that
it's like,
conversation with Red Jackson last night.
100%, right? But you throw it it's like it's always the same, right? So when I was telling the guys, it's like throwing a baseball, and then Des looked at me like I was speaking Swahili, and I go, "You've played ball, right?" Des is like, "I never played any organized sports. I just went home and played video games." And I go, "But he was raised by his grandpa Marty." Spelled differently, but Grandpa Marty was also a lot older. I go, didn't you play catch with Grandpa Marty? He's like, no, guy was like 70. Like, come on, man. And I was like, Des, I am not having a father-son moment with you where we play catch. Like, it is bad enough this town thinks I'm your dad. We're not going to do this. He goes, yeah, I don't know if I can emotionally handle it. And I go, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. so yeah, it was just like, oh, I'm not going to go play catch with you. Although it would have made for a great vignette on a Skoden episode of where I had to play catch with my long lost son.
Spot breaks out in the match where you decide to play baseball during the match.
And it's like turns into Field of Dreams, and we just walk off into the sunset, and then slowly fades to black. And it was like, what happened? Who won?
Yeah, if you build it, they will come.
Which is literally the story.
That's what they did. Like they built a ring and you came.
100%. You said buy an old rusted out MMA ring, and someone will come break their back in it to help train you to be a pro wrestler. And scene, Finn, Oscar nominations coming my way.
Well, Marty, I just want to give you a huge thank you. You've been tremendous to talk to as always.
Thanks, buddy.
Let's give out any information you have on any of your upcoming shows, your social media information, where people can find Talk Down or Big West Wrestling, or if you have any plans to go back to Totally Arctic Wrestling, like, yeah, just let us know what you're up to.
As far as Totally Arctic Wrestling, I was supposed to come back, but because I'm going on the road, I got a job working for the Carnival. I've done everything as a wrestler backwards.
Oh,
So
I think Ian Smalls works for the Carnival.
very cool. But I did everything
RCW
backwards.
referee.
So I was a pro wrestler first, and then I became a bouncer, and now I work in the Carnival. It's like, no, you're supposed to do those two, and then, but whatever. I'm getting them all. I'm checking off all the boxes just in the wrong order. So while I'm gone is when the next Totally Arctic shows are in March. So Todd Quality stole my spot yet again, the bugger. But as far as Big West Wrestling is concerned, bigwestwrestling.com directs you to the Facebook page where all the links are there. So, and Twitter is Big West Okanagan, but any of the YouTube stuff goes on the Facebook page. And that's just the primary spot for fans to get all the info on Big West. And I've been doing a lot more editing, so a lot more matches. There's a lot more talk down episodes where it's promos and matches. And I'm just trying to get more stuff out there. We're super busy in March 1st and 2nd back on the Sunshine Coast. March 16th and 17th, we are doing Enderby and another show in Summerland. And then April, we've got 2 shows for sure. 20th, 21st in Enderby's like our main spot now. And then Falkland, we're trying to bring up 2. And then hopefully Summerland, we can get back up and running. And that'll be the 3 key spots in the Okanagan. And yeah, that'll all be happening while I'm on the road. So knock on wood that the crew can keep that going for me.
Solid.
Or burn all the towns and I can retire. Either or, I'm good either way.
Boys, please don't burn the towns.
I've never indie wrestling. You can never get out of it. And Vance Nevada was talking to me like 2 years ago. He goes, "I'm so done." And now he's like, 50th championship. I'm never quitting. And it was like, make up your mind, dude. Like, but none of us ever really quit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Your whole thing about the Carnival too, just I don't know. I'll leave you with this little tidbit of my personal wisdom is because I do the honking and stuff, and I've been accused of being carny. And my response now is, well, have you ever gone to a carnival and not had a good time?
Yeah, 100%, right?
Like
that's totally not carny. Carny is ripping people off. So unless you're scamming the brothers, you're doing okay. You might be a little hokey, you might be a little corny, but you're definitely not carny.
I appreciate that.
I've never had to be like, watch your wallet around the goose.
Yeah, no. Although I did help myself to the all the free drinks and granola bars that you brought to the show, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, see, that's an Albertan thing though. The second I brought granola bars out, I just watched all the Albertans stuff their bag full, and I was like, and then you guys are like, "Hey, can we get booked again?" No. I owe like $1,000 to Nabisco over here for the granola bars you guys ate. You're eating me out of house at home.
I mean, I definitely wasn't the worst one. I know KB6 and them. We also packed like 6 pizzas into the car.
Yeah, KB6 is bad for that. KB6 is bad for that. He's good, but he's bad for that too. Yeah, I always catch him doing something.
Another lesson I was legitimately taught by somebody in wrestling was because a promoter. I was in a convenience store with one of the promoters out here, and he asked me, "Oh, do you want anything?" And then I was like, "No, that's cool." And then one of the other wrestlers, who's like a veteran guy, was like, "No, if you ever get asked if you want anything, you say yes." And it's
I
whatever
always do
you
that
can
when
get.
I stop. Yeah. No,
but,
you got it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to be greedier and anything. I'm just for the sake of
KB6 is greedy. He's a greedy bugger. I'm saying it right now. I love him to death.
He's worth every penny, though. He's very talented.
Yeah, the last show we did, I was like, "Hey, buddy, where'd that whole package of water go?" He goes, "Oh, it might be in my trunk." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Sorry." I go, "Just ask, man." He's like, "Okay." But yeah, KB6 is super fun dude, super chill, super talented wrestler. Yeah, he's one of the good ones.
I was happy I got to wrestle him in Big West, and then again out here recently. We actually had a really, really good match.
And I watched that match, and you can see the improvement. You can see the improvement you've made, even not only just improving in the ring, but having to come back from injury. That's double tough to not only try and get better as a wrestler, but like, hey, I took a whole year off, so let me try and get back to even where I was before. So no, good on you for that.
Yeah, that was a fun crowd too. Like I was laying there, and anytime I just it just immediately started up, and I was like, okay, cool. It was
That's
great.
when you know you're over, buddy. That's when
Yeah,
you know you're over.
it was so much fun. Anyway, Marty, I'm going to let you go. Thank you again for coming on Monday Night Shaw. Thank you for talking to me about Big West Wrestling and Totally Arctic Wrestling. And good luck in the carnival, and have a lot of fun doing that.
Thanks. If I'm in your town, West Coast Amusement. So if you see it listed, come find me, and
Okie dokie.
I'll say hey. I'll give you a hug and a honk and maybe a hot dog and a handshake.
Solid. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.